Pháp dương vô thượng tôn, tam giới vô luân thập. Thiên nhân chi đạo, sư tử sanh chi từ phù. Nhất niệm quy năng diệt tam kiệt. Sướng dương nhược tán thán, ức kiếp mạt năng tầng.
Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. We continue on with the text. Two rise because of one, but one should not exist at all. If the one doesn't rise, then all dharmas have no effects. Two rise because of one means pure and false thoughts are created by our minds. The two represent pure and false thoughts. They are created by the one, which is the mind. If the one doesn't rise, then all dharmas have no defects. If the mind gives rise to a thought, then thousands of forms or dharmas could rise and fall accordingly. But one should not exist at all. This is referring to the mind. The minds of all beings come from the rise and fall of thoughts. So, therefore, these minds are impermanent. They appear and disappear, so you should not try to hold on to them. If the one doesn't rise, then all dharmas have no defects. Dharmas are created by the mind, and all dharmas are dependent on the condition to the rise and fall. When your mind does not create the pure or false thoughts, chân vọng, then all dharmas would not have any standing, and your pure mind appears and is without faults. Now back to the text. Without defects, without dharma, no birth, no mind. The mind disappears with the forms subside with the mind. Defects are created by the mind. Dharmas are created by the distinguishing function of the mind. Remember that if the mind does not give rise to any thought, then how could defect exist? The mind sees and recognizes the defects. So if it doesn't see, then the defect doesn't exist. Similarly with dharmas, if the mind doesn't distinguish what it sees, then the dharmas doesn't rise. Without the mind being conscious of the situation, how could the mind distinguish? Hence, if the mind does not give rise to thoughts, then dharmas arise from nowhere. Do you see now that the mind and the dharmas go together? When the mind gives birth to thoughts, then all kinds of dharmas could rise. When the mind gives birth to no thoughts, then the rise and fall of dharmas would sink, and the pure blissful mind would appear right away, whether you want it or not. The following phrase by the ancient master reflects this scenario. Practice without exertion. However, the small will path does the opposite. They must exert energy. They must sit and meditate. They must find all kinds of techniques to still their thoughts. The big will path or Mahayana path does it differently. This master often said, meditation is recognizing the true Dharma nature, not relying on text or writing, and seeing the pure mind to become the Buddha. This basically means becoming a Buddha without exertion. The foundation is based on seeing your true mind, no birth, no mind. Means that the mind is always silent, will not give rise to thoughts. And since there is no birth, there is also no death to thought as well. If there is no thought of happiness or sadness, then what is there to support the elimination of happiness or sadness? They don't exist. They are just a creation of the deluded mind. Pain and suffering does not exist, but a deluded mind transforms them into reality. An awakened mind knows that all dharmas are impermanent. The four basic elements are empty, and the five senses are constantly changing. Therefore, an awakened person would not be attracted to them. If a practitioner truly comprehends what an awakened person sees, then even if he doesn't practice, he still would become a Buddha. The mind disappears with the forms. The forms subside with the mind. These two sentences mean if the conscious mind doesn't give rise to thoughts, then the sixth sensory world naturally disappears. Do you see this clearly? The reason a person suffers is because he accepts what he sees or hears or feels from the world. For example, if you bought a new car, and on the next day, while walking out of the shopping mall toward where your car was parked, you found a huge scratch on the door of your new car. How would you feel? Your mind probably would instantly be filled with unhappy thoughts. So, if your mind does not initiate a thought, then would this unpleasant event be born? It would not. The wise person knows that everything outside of him is constantly changing, except them all, and would not give birth to pain and suffering. The opposite reaction would occur to a deluded person because he accepts everything as real and is attached to them. So the bottom line is whether or not you accept what you see, hear, or feel as real or not. This would then create the existence of all dharmas and emotions related to them. The form and the mind will always react to each other. So if the mind stops initiating thoughts, then the corresponding forms would be eliminated. An ordinary person looks at the world and sees thousands of forms. He will see mountains as mountains and rivers as rivers. But for a Zen practitioner, he sees the world as well, but through a different interpretation. He sees each form in the nature of its birth and death, which stop him from being attached. He would sigh and wonder why so many beings are deluded by this world and won't wake up and return to the blissful world of the Tathagata. Now back to the text. The form exists because of the mind. The mind exists because of the forms. Know that the two parts originally came from one emptiness. If the form exists, but there is no mind to receive it, then that form does not exist. The form does not exist by itself. The active mind initiates a thought and receives the form into its mind. If you see a form, but if there are no eyes, how can you see it? Likewise, if you have eyes, but if there are no forms to look at, what do you see? The eyes rely on the form in order to see. The forms rely on the eyes for the mind to see the form. I know this sounds confusing, but try to understand the concept of your mind. It is difficult to fully explain the intention of the master. The ancient master had the following quote: "Generating but no generation. Without the mind, there is no dharmas. Initiating but no initiation. Without dharmas, there is no mind." Once you hear this quote, chances you are all foggy and confused. I read that one. Understanding the Zen quote is very hard. Using words to describe Zen thought is like using a pen to draw a phoenix flying very high up in the sky. You could not clearly see its form and image because it was so far up in the sky already. The phoenix was known to fly very high up in the sky, so you could only see a small image of it. You cannot see it clearly with your eyes, so your drawing of it would not be correct. The one mind can generate thousands of dharmas, but this mind is constantly changing and could not be trusted. So in Zen, regarding words or thought, the master do not become attached to them. With a mind full of thought, the practitioner will not be able to see the way. Thoughts become obstacle to the truth. It is similar to what you see in the Chinese martial art movie, where a Tai Chi practitioner wants to change and learn Shaolin martial art instead. He would have to forget everything he had learned from the Tai Chi and start from the basic beginning in Shaolin. In Zen Buddhism, it is the same way. The master would want you to eliminate all the things that you have learned, have seen, know, or thought of, because these and the blissful mind experiences are of different nature. Therefore, when you have seen your pure mind, then anything you do, whether it is walking, standing, lying, or sitting, this Buddha nature would never subside. This can only be known by people who practice. Those who want to find their Buddha nature in what they have seen, heard, know, or thought of will never find it. There are many like these who spend their entire lifetime practicing, hoping to see their Buddha nature, but unfortunately never met and practiced under a true master. So they could only imitate or use words from the sutra or their own unenlightened masters and be trapped within it. So for those who have practicing under an enlightened master, then you are very fortunate. You may be very fortunate indeed, but now the next question is that are you willing to devote the time and effort into practice? There was once a temple headed by Phap master. He had students who studied under him for 10 to 15 years and were not yet enlightened, even though the master was already enlightened. But fate is said that when these students went to hear from Madol, master, an enlightened Zen master who lived nearby, as he was giving lecture to worshippers, they awakened. Your success in your practice is dependent on your diligent effort and the karmic connection between you and the one who can open your mind. The master who could do this are very special. They could look at the practitioner and see his strength and weaknesses. Whenever the practitioner goes outside of his pure mind, the master would have corrected and not let him fall far behind. Our minds are created by circumstances and rampant thoughts. It runs everywhere and we could not control it. Only the good master knows how to seize control of it. Now back to the text. The one emptiness covers both sides, containing all dharmas. It doesn't see the opposite. The biased mind is eliminated. It is very difficult for me to explain in detail the thoughts of a Zen master. I will try my best to explain what I can. In the next 4 lines, you should understand the meaning and forget the words. The mind is not different from dharmas, so one is not the same as two. The Dharmas are not different from the mind, so they contain all the thoughts. 1 here represent your pure mind. 2 represent the true and false views. To a deluded mind, he makes judgment on everything. For an enlightened mind, then all these minds are liberated to help your pure mind be illuminated or use whatever is available to explain and help all beings. In ancient times, when the master dealt with practitioners who came and asked questions, the more the practitioner used knowledge and reasoning, the faster the master's cane would hit their bodies. Why was that? It was done to stop them from using knowledge and reasoning, to stop them from using words to explain, so that they could enter the pure mind. If not, you will get stuck on these ideas and think that you have attained. Currently, we are in a period of debate and theatrics competitions to demonstrate who is the best. If you do this to show off your Buddhist Dharma's understanding, then the ancient master would all shake their heads at you. Why is that? You are all in the midst of birth and death Dharmas, so you won't be able to see your way out. You should be appreciative of all the master for their guidance. You should get rid of all debate about Buddhist Dharmas and let your mind return to its original self. It doesn't see the opposite. The biased mind is eliminated. If the minds of everyone return to emptiness, then what will happen? The Buddhas and everyone's mind will be at the same level. The reason why Buddha is Buddha and all beings are all beings is because we make the distinction between the Buddha's mind being silent, whereas all beings' mind being corrupted. Once the mind discriminates, then you will be trapped and continue to go through the rebirth. Let me tell you about a Zen monk who came from a royal family. He was a monk and a very diligent practitioner who wished to be awakened within his lifetime. He tried very hard to eliminate any evil thoughts in his mind. One day on his route to beg for alms, he came across a brothel. There was a girl working there, but in reality, she was a bodhisattva incarnated. When the monk came by, she said, "Your mind is very quiet. Your 6 faculties are also very quiet. But there is a remnant of great pride and ego because you came from a royal family." After saying this, she poured into the monk's bowl a stale porridge that has been cooked 3 or 4 days ago. The monk then left and stopped and sat down at a tree nearby to eat his meal. Once he opened his bowl, the foul smell from the stale porridge came out. He took one bite, could not handle it, and poured it on the road. The girl ran up to him right away and pointed straight to his face and said, "If you continue with your discriminated mind, then when will you become a Buddha?" Do you hear that? It is difficult, very difficult. Later that night, the monk analyzed his mind and realized that his discriminating mind gave him false view of the world and trapped him in it. The following days, he would go to where the restaurants are and seek the food where they threw away, bring it to his cave and meditate on it until they were acceptable to him, and then eat it. He did this for the next 12 years until the day he realized his non-discriminative mind and awakened. So, do you now see that the generated mind a discriminative mind could generate so many false views and so many seeds for future rebirths? It is not easy. If you use what you see, hear, think, or know to build your mind in your practice, then you will encounter many difficulties. There were many masters who have difficult lives. They live in far and remote places which had few people. They seldom ate a cooked meal, but only ate food they gathered from forest trees. They did not think about whether this tastes good or bad. In their mind, they only think about goodness and how to liberate themselves to become a Buddha. Let me tell you another story. A monk at Seng Ts'an who heard of the Master Ma To's reputation in Buddha's teaching and wanted to visit and learn. Once he arrived, the master asked, "Where did you come from?" And the monk replied that he came from Seng Ts'an. The master then said, "I have heard that there were many things happening back there. And do you have any knowledge of them?" The young monk answered, "Dear master, my living area was very peaceful." Do you all see that this monk has achieved already? Why? The master was asking him about the situation at his hometown, but he answered about the state of his mind. The monk lived there, but he did not focus outward and saw what was happening in his town. He only saw his mind within himself. His place was peaceful day and night. This is how you should practice. Practice so that the outside form do not distract your mind. All thoughts should be focused toward your mind. All thoughts should be on the Buddha's names, and all thoughts should be on the Buddha's dhammas. You have to practice like that in order to be free from the attraction of the world. Else the passion from them will take away all of your earned blessings that you have worked so hard to attain. Through this story, you should see that a Zen practitioner should constantly be meditating and not let their focus be interrupted. This was the reason why ancient monks rose fast and quickly achieved. Today's monks have too many distractions. They would practice with much effort, but the success rate is very low. If you practice like the ancient, then your chance of success will be much higher. For example, the first Zen Patriarch, Mahakasyapa, took 3 months to achieve arhathood, whereas Mukilin, one of the Buddha's Sakyamuni disciple, who was best known for his spiritual power, took him 3 nights to achieve. So if your karmic connection and blessing are not there, it will take a long time to achieve. Else, it could take an instant, like a blink of the eyes. In the sutra, the Buddha has said that the one who could let everything go and return to his blissful mind, then from 1 to 7 days, he could realize the fruit of arhathood. The Buddha has said so, and he is not wrong, because the practitioner today have too many distractions from the outside world. He sits down to meditate and hears a sound outside and gets curious and comes over to see if anyone might be coming to visit him. Practicing it this way, of stop and go, then you will not be able to build up enough momentum to spark the fire and push you over the top. So don't ever say the sutra said it wrong, but it is you who practice it wrong. Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Now back to the text. It doesn't see the opposite. The biased mind is eliminated. This section said if the mind's Dharma are all empty, then the Buddha and all beings are at the same level and impartial. By this time, even if you don't want it, your true mind still always appears. The blissful mind covers all dharmas. Isn't that simple? All you need to do is to have a mind that has no thought and not attached. Then the Buddha and all beings are impartials. On to the next text. The Great Way is wide. It is neither easy nor hard. Narrow understanding brings great doubt, great haste, and slow progress. The Great Way is wide. It's referring to your mind. It is very wide and broad. It contains all the stars and all of your thoughts. It covers the vast sky and wide earth. But first, in order for you to enter this vastness of the mind, you must have faith in the mind. What does that mean? It means that you must believe that your mind could become a Buddha. The ancient Buddhas have made it, and your mind could make it too. It means that you should not ever underestimate your mind and should not ever think that you could not become a Buddha. The one who does not believe in the mind could not become a Buddha belong to the Nhất Xiển Đề class. In the Mahayana past, sometime when a monk did his lecture, if the listener was still stuck on the concept of time, that said to become a Buddha would take 3 incalculable kalpas of rebirth. The listener would think that the lecturer was at fault for bypassing time and space when encouraging worshippers to become a Buddha. You should know that in the Mahayana path, time and space doesn't matter. As long as the mind doesn't generate thoughts, then at that point right there, that mind has already liberated itself. But did you really receive it, or just fooling yourself? Do you still moan and complain about the situation when you receive loss, and laugh and be happy when you receive gains? The Zen practice is easy when you have faith in your mind, and not if you have no faith that your mind can become a Buddha. Now back to the text. Narrow understanding brings great doubt, great haste, and slow progress. Your mind versus the mind of the Buddhas in the 10th direction, and of the past, present, and future are all impartials, and not be any different. Once the mind becomes deluded, then there would be countless rebirths in the 6 realms. But when one thought of the mind awakens, then in an instant the mind sees the original self. It can happen in a blink of an eye. There were 2 disciples of the 28th Zen Patriarch Bodhidharma who came to China. They were not versed in Chinese since they were Zen monks from India. When they met the first patriarch of the Pure Land sect, Fayan, they had to communicate through hand gesture. They unfold their fingers from their palms to represent a false thought, and then folding of the finger into their palm to be the pure thought. By doing this, they show the changes from pure to false thought and backward could be that quick. Therefore, between the deluded and the awakened, at the beginning, he was a regular being. but at an instant later, he could be a Buddha immediately. This is why Mahayana path goes at a very high speed, which can bypass space and time. The ancient masters have said you can become a Buddha without changing a spot on your face. The outside form remains the same, but the mind is already comparable to Buddhas and patriarch minds. In the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha has said, "Because of my compassion for all beings, I came here to guide them to re-enter their Buddha nature." He came to show you the way, but whether or not you enter the path is all dependent on you. He cannot use his spiritual power to let you enter the Buddha land. All the sutras are just koans or literary guidance to help you see clearly the way to go directly to your Buddha mind. Also, remember that you cannot use your understanding of what you have learned and say that you have attained because you are still standing outside. You must implement and practice what you have learned before you can enter the gate of Buddha nature. With knowledge alone, you are still standing outside the temple's gate. If the suspicion of your practice exists no more, then the strength that would carry you forward to your success becomes very strong. If you don't have the faith that your mind could become a Buddha, then you will run toward all directions, looking for a Buddha or the right master to save you. Whereas a person who truly believes in the possibility of his own Buddha mind, then he just needs to practice one form, like reciting the Buddha's name to achieve samadhi, or Quán Viên Thông, sound listening meditation that I have mentioned. These two practices could easily help you go beyond the rebirth cycle if you can master them. But because you were not diligent and persistent and just wanted to run around listening a little to this and a little to that, accumulating all kinds of ideas, which further confuses the direct path to your Buddha mind. You heard a lot but could not understand it, which further dilutes the Buddha mind right in front of you. You should have known that yours and the Buddha mind are one, not two. Its nature is already blissful. It is already illuminating in all 10 directions. And you do not need to leave your room door to become a Buddha in an instant. It could be that fast. This is the ultimate one will, nhất thừa. Now back to the text. Attachment will blind your way and lead your mind astray. Let them all flow naturally, so there won't be either pushing or grasping. When you are attached to your ideas, like a common man, then you could not see the Buddha's way. In that mode, you will look for gain or loss, look for the right word and meaning to justify that your actions are correct. When you let go of your original mind, then for sure you would turn to your calculating mind. A person who does not trust that his mind and the Buddha's could be the same will look into all the sutras to find the Buddhas there. A-di-đà Phật. This is very funny, because this is someone who is still very deluded, but hopefully that thinking would be short-lived until he meets the right master to wake him up. The calculating mind, tâm trí kiến, and the Buddha's mind does not coexist at the same time. When one arises, the other subsides. And if the calculating mind continue, then eventually your mind will be led astray. In the ancient time, there were many monks who could not let go of their own way of thinking and asked the Buddha for them to go back to their old lives. It is better that they renunciate to avoid committing serious karmic retribution have they violated their vows. There is no shame in this. It is better than to masquerade in a monk's robe and have your conscience be full of guilt due to your betrayal of your vows. These would be great sins. The Buddha does not force anyone to become a monk or anyone to take the vows. You do it for yourself, and if you think that you can't do it, then just renunciate them. Nobody in this world can laugh at you because nobody in this world was completely clean when they first entered this world. Everyone has karma debt and past habitual energies to overcome in his rebirth. Those who have fewer limitations to overcome then will have a better chance to meet the right master to help him progress further. Now back to the text. Let them all flow naturally, so there won't be either pushing or grasping. When there is no more suspicion in the practitioner's mind and the attachment to the world has been let go, then his mind becomes impartial and free right away. Then he will realize deluded, awakened, right and false views all came from the same original mind, and they did not come or go. When you are deluded, you thought that these different views came from different or stressful places. But once you are awakened, then you will see them returning to and are part of the original mind. This is why you need to try to still your six senses. And once you have mastered them, each one of them will be the source of wisdom. In summary, once the false thoughts are no more and you return to your true mind, then the Tathagata nature will naturally appear. Now back to the text. Return to your nature and be one with the way. Be at ease and add no stress. Attached to thoughts will depart from truth and sink you into deep stupor. When your mind has returned to its original mind, then it is at one with the way. This is what the master referred to as Minh Tâm Kiến Tánh, where the blissful mind automatically appears. All the stress exists no more. This is when a practitioner reaches arhat level. All the stress and the weight of the false views are off his shoulder. And if this doesn't generate a blissful mind, then that would be strange indeed. Attached to thought will depart from truth and sink you into deep stupor. In contrast, once your mind generates thought, then your mind becomes attached and could not return to its original mind. The more you generate thoughts, the further your original mind will leave you, because it is a mind that is always on, and if you cover it up with false thoughts, then its lights of wisdom will be blocked. Your mind will become blurred and become disoriented. You would think that you are practicing correctly, but somehow there is sadness inside because you could not see the way. You could not see the blissfulness. You could only see loneliness in your practice without signs of success, neither awakened nor deluded. Therefore, If any of you are in this state of stupor, you should find a master to help you, else you would become dissatisfied and give up. The goal is to find blissfulness within your own mind, and yet here you are adding more stress and false view into your mind. Then that is the wrong way to go. If there is no thought generated by your mind, then who or what is it that is holding you back? Phap, do you know who? The thing that holds you back is your karmic retribution and habitual energies. In your past, you have planted all kinds of karmic seeds, which must be resolved when all the connections are in place. Your karmic seed determines your location of rebirth in the 6 realms. In the sutra, it was written clearly, the bodhisattvas are afraid of creating new karmic seed, while all beings are afraid of paying back the karmic retribution. The bodhisattvas know that bad karmic seed produce bad environments, so they would never take on those bad seeds. All beings are really afraid of paying back karmic debts too, but they could not help themselves in accumulating more bad karmic seeds because they wanted instant satisfaction from those bad seeds. It is like borrowing more money to paying existing debt. They would sign up for more debt to pay the existing loan and worry about the future later. The Bodhisattva knows karmic debt is the cause for their rebirth, so they would do all they can to pay them off as soon as possible and stay away from all new debt. If this can be done, then they are liberated and be free and could go wherever they want in their next life. It is that simple. In contrast, when most beings see or hear something that they disagree with, then their emotions are all over the place. This causes more karmic debt that must be repaid later on. You sow what you reap, so you should not be disappointed when life doesn't go your way. This is how bodhisattvas and all beings differ in how they react to karmic debts. In summary, bodhisattvas are afraid of karmic seeds, whereas all beings are afraid of karmic retribution. If your mind generates no more thoughts and has cleared up all past debts, then no one could hold you back, and your mind is impartial, and you are free to go wherever you want, and not be forced into the 6th realm of rebirth. Do you see now how fast and easy it is to succeed following the Mahayana path? Yesterday you could be a deluded person, but after listening to Dharma talk, which could awake your mind that has been in stupor for thousands of lifetimes. The Mahayana path focuses on the root causes of your suffering instead of looking at the symptoms. The sutra said that it could take up to 3 incalculable kalpas to liberate yourself. But if you have sufficient blessing, the Mahayana master could hit you over the head and you could enter the realm of no thoughts right away and free yourself. Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật.